People sometimes plan for the end of their lives by writing their own obituaries. Then upon death, family members and friends fill in details about times and locations of services. Yes, this is a thing. Sometimes what people write is really funny. Scott Ensminger loved the Cleveland Browns. Now, fans of the Cleveland Browns know them as a football team that was for many years awful. When Scott died in 2018, in addition to the obituary he wrote for himself, he had this request for his funeral service. He asked for six Cleveland Browns pallbearers, so that, quote, the Browns could let him down one last time. I don't know if he got his wish, but it made me laugh. There are many other funny obituaries I found when I Google searched, but I decided not to include them because the point is, what do you think your obituary would say? And if you got to write your own obituary, what would you want it to say? How do you want to be remembered? Today's scriptures remind us that we would do well to think of these things. They use a type of literature which we refer to as apocalyptic, strange symbols and language, which have as their goal, in large part, to remind us that things end. There will be an end to our ability to work, to our friendships, to our ability to remember, an end to our very lives, an end to the lives of those we love. Then, starkly, Jesus tells us that we do not know either the hour nor the day that this will happen for us. Now, he doesn't say that to frighten us. He does so because it's the truth. And he wants that truth to focus our awareness again on what we say we value. Sometimes we get so caught up in things while seemingly very important in the moment, mean very little really in light of the shortness of life. We forget what really matters to us. The realization that we do not know when our world will end invites each of us to think about whether or not we are living now those things we say that we value. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be described at the end of your life? Are you living that way now? Some of you know the story of Alfred Nobel, the man who invented dynamite. One morning years ago, Alfred sat down to have a cup of coffee, opened the newspaper, and to his surprise, read his own obituary. A reporter had mistakenly reported Alfred's death in place of his brother's. Now, it gave him a unique opportunity to read what was written about him and how he would be remembered. Alfred's obituary described him as the dynamite king who had spent his life making instruments of death and destruction. He didn't like that. That is not how he wanted to be remembered. It wasn't the legacy he wanted to leave the world. So that morning, he resolved to change his life. Not only did Alfred Nobel resolve to do so, he actually did so. So much so that later, in his name, prizes would be awarded each year in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace. Instead of being remembered as the dynamite king, he would forever be remembered as the one for whom the Nobel Peace Prize was named. Such is the gift in facing the reality of our own death. It provides a chance to choose again what really matters. There are too many who need no such reminder, who have faced death too recently, for whom the reality, the shortness of life is altogether too much in their faces. Our own book of remembrance here is filled with the names of those we have loved, whose lives changed our world and whose deaths have changed it again. Yet, there is a part of each of us which tends, at least at some point, to fall back to a certain level of business as usual, to forget the precariousness of life and the possibility of it all being upended in a moment. Alfred Nobel got to see what would have been written about him had he been the one who died. What do you think people would write about you if you were the one who died today? Would you be thought of as a kind person? A generous person? Or are there people who would remember you as being, well, sort of mean-spirited? Or maybe selfish? Would people think of you as someone with a thankful, joyful spirit? Or more as someone who is kind of crabby? Would you be known for loving to spend time with your family? For being a person whose faith mattered to them? As someone who genuinely cared for others and worked for the good of this world? Or not? In case it is helpful, in our bulletin and on our webpage, we have a little fill the blanks obituary. It's, short. You put your name and died today at age blank, however old you would be right now. There might be some blessings in taking just 2 minutes to do this, 3 minutes. The final question of that activity is, she or he would like to be remembered as blank. It's good to think about that. What would you like your obituary to say? What would you want to be noted for? Jesus today reminds us that we do not know when that hour will come for us. That does add a certain urgency to our living. So, are there any words of kindness to speak? Isn't this the time for them? Is there some good you or I want to do? Some forgiveness we want to seek or to offer? Should we really wait any longer? Personally, I don't intend to die soon. I hope not. But I don't know. Now I am of an age that I have outlived my own dad. So I've written down stuff that I want people to be able to read if I die. The things I say there, the real question is whether or not people can see them now. Jesus tells us clearly today that we do not know when our end will come, but he reminds us that it will. That gives an urgency to our living. Am I living now those values that last or not?